Hey everyone, Dr. Alex here, and I want to do as quick of a video as I can about the differences between dyslexia and dysgraphia. Now, when it comes to dyslexia and dysgraphia, they oftentimes go hand in hand with one another, especially individuals that are diagnosed with dyslexia. Do not be surprised if you end up having a diagnosis that could go along with it, such as dysgraphia. So dyslexia is generally regarded as a reading disorder. It has to do with word decoding. These are kiddos and adults with an issue where they cannot make the proper enunciation. They cannot connect the sound of words or letters or numbers so they can decode what they're reading in their head or aloud appropriately. And there's much more to dyslexia. Oftentimes even dyslexia gets tied with flipping numbers or letters. It can get pretty complex, but that's the basis of it. And dysgraphia is an inability to have proper fine motor skills, generally speaking. These are kiddos generally that have poor penmanship, they have poor spelling abilities, and they might even be mixing up their P's and D's and Q's and 9's and B's and things of that nature. And when it comes to working with these disorders from a traditional basis, what usually gets done is with dyslexia, you'll end up having regular visits to the tutor, maybe a reading program, and even an IEP or a 504 plan within your school or school district will be formed to help that individual, as well as going to occupational therapy. Could be something that could be done. For dysgraphia, it's not quite as involved, typically just involving occupational therapy, whether that might be in school or privately held. But generally that's how dysgraphia will get taken care of. You'll end up going to occupational therapists because when it comes to occupational therapists that work, especially within kids and pediatrics having these issues, OTs generally deal with fine motor skills, and that's what dysgraphia is a lack of having fine motor skills with your hands, especially writing. So at HML, what we like to do is talk about the neurology, what is going on and what is the difference, because that has everything to do with if you want to get down to the root cause of the problem and restore or gain function and potentially not deal with this as a problem the rest of your life, or have it minimized so that you don't even realize it anymore. So when it comes to the neurology of this, well, we can get pretty specific, but we're going to stick to the basics for now. So sorry for the poor drawing. But what we have here is the top is our cortices. We have our right half of our brain, left half of our brain. Down here is our cerebellum, or in this case, cerebellums. We're going with the right half of the cerebellum and the left half of the cerebellum. Now, Neurology 101, the right half of the cerebellum talks to the left brain all day. The left half of the cerebellum talks to the right brain all day. And the best biomarkers in the neurology literature shows that dyslexia is a problem with the right cerebellum, and then the back or posterior portion of the left brain, particularly an area called the left parietal-temporal-occipital junction, or PTO. And what is going on is there's a lack of appropriate activity here in the cerebellum, this half of the cerebellum, and here in the PTO. And because the brain develops from the bottom up, including the brainstem, which isn't in this picture, and it develops from inside to out, or medial structures, then followed by lateral structures are developed, then it goes from right to left, you believe it or not left to right, which is kind of a fun fact. So when we talk development, if the back half of the left brain is not quite developed, there's a delay there, and there's enough of a delay that this individual, let's call it a child, has dyslexia. And the brain, which I realize I didn't mention, also develops from back to front. If we are not developing from appropriately from back to front, then you can see that an individual who has dyslexia could have dysgraphia because the back of the brain fires to the front of the brain, to our frontal lobes, all day. It's not quite the same for dyslexia or for dysgraphia, because dysgraphia is generally Again, we're going to be talking a right cerebellar dysfunction, but mixed with a front half of the left half of the brain. It's going to be the issue there with dysgraphia. So when you see a functional neurologist, such as the ones here at HML, and you're working with them to be able to increase the function of these areas of the brain and catch up their maturity to increase not only function, but get rid of the symptoms and the challenges that the child is having, we are going to really focus on what areas of the brain are involved and get that area up to speed. And we do that by stimulating these areas of the brain through using gross motor skills, fine motor skills, ocular motor exercises, how well your eyes move, vestibular system therapy. Your vestibular system is your inner ear system that tells your head where your, tells your brain where your head is in space. Even proprioceptive input, which is the input that tells your brain where your body is in space. All of that can potentially be used to stimulate the areas of involvement to catch up development and restore appropriate activity in those areas to potentially get rid of a diagnosis or restore it enough so that is such a minimized problem that it is considered really no longer a problem. The person is no longer burdened by it as much as possible. So just wanted to explain the differences there. See you guys soon.